Video response to a question I received. I'm going to answer that video, or answer this question. It says he's 28 years old. He's saying, is it too late now to start training? He says he would like to be a martial artist full-time with his own school and students, etc. He just doesn't have any idea how long it takes to become really good. Alright, so, this question is very dynamic. It could go in many directions. First off, you're never too late to start training. I think people at all ages could benefit from the martial arts training. So, if you have interest in training, I recommend for everybody to just start, to start it up. As far as how long it takes to get really good, the answer to that question could go in many directions. I could say it takes a lifetime to get good, and people that are naturally humble will understand this. They just keep training and training, and they never think that they're good, because as soon as they think that they're good, it's arrogance, it's lack of humbleness, it's just a misunderstanding. It's almost like, but at the same time, you don't want to have this false humbleness where, you think, you say that you're not good, but then inside you really do know that you're good. I mean, just the idea of thinking that you're good, there's already a problem there. It's not meditation. It's just your ego stepping in, your pride is your ego stepping in and trying to tell you, trying to make you feel that you're better, that everybody else is not as good as you. You've been doing this for so long, and it's like your head gets filled up with all these ideas. So, how long does it take to get really good? The real martial artist that is truly humble, he really doesn't think he's good. He doesn't think anything, but he approaches it from a standpoint of always being a beginner, where he always has to improve. Like, it's not that he's a perfectionist, it's not that he's never good enough, but it's that he always sees room for improvement, and he doesn't feel that the journey is over or ever will be over. It's just constant improvement for the rest of his life. So in a way, he's never quote unquote good. But to the average person that looks at him from the outside, they could assess him to be really good because they don't have the same discipline that he does. But he doesn't compare himself to the average person. He compares himself to his own personal potential, which he knows could be better, And if not better, it's not even about striving to be better, because even the striving, even the thought of striving to be better is not meditation. That's the ego. That's ambition. That's not a martial artist either. The martial artist, or a high-level martial artist, let me say, is somebody that's not even ambitious. He's not trying to be good. He doesn't care to be good. He just trains because he loves to train, and then through that love, when he's compared to the average person, he will be at a very high level. But if you compare him to himself, he's just a regular person. He's just somebody who's just working towards getting better in what he does, or he might not even work towards getting better. He's just doing what he loves because just what he loves to do. And there's always a challenge, no matter what level he's at. So, if you make it in a simple terms, When he's 5 years old, he did 5 pull-ups, and then he's always going to strive to do more. When he's 15 years old, he did 10, now he's going to strive to do more. When he's 30 years old, he did 20, now he's going to strive to do more. So even when he does 40, he knows he could do more, or strive to do more. So what's the difference between somebody who could do 40 pull-ups and somebody who could do 5? They both have something to improve upon. Who's better than who? Well, who are you comparing? Why do you have to compare those two people? Like, everybody could improve, no matter what level they're at. Now, when you say, how long does it take to get good? But then who are you comparing yourself to? If you compare yourself to the general public, then to get good, it could be pretty quick. It could be a couple weeks. It could be a couple days. It could be a couple years. Because the general public is always going to be at a very low standard, because just not a lot of people out there in this world are the value like health and fitness. But it's not just about fitness. It's not just about fighting better too. It's also about meditation, because that's the balance of the martial arts, the body, mind, and spirit. So you have to assess a person's fitness development, his health, his combative development, and his spiritual development. And compared to the general public, a lot of the people are not really that developed in those areas. So to get better than the general public is not that much of a difficult task. But if you are going to compare yourself to other martial artists, like say I use Bruce Lee as a guide point, then if you compare yourself to Bruce Lee and where he left off in his training, then you have a lot of work ahead of you, potentially. You know, look at how fast he was, look at how strong he was, look at how great his technique was. Pay attention to how well his spirituality and his understanding of Eastern philosophy was. Like, compare yourself to that standard, then it will take many years to get to that level. It could take over 30 years, over 40 years to get to that level. So, you know, look at the things that he was able to do. If you want to use him as a standard, then it's not going to be easy. He got to where he was by the age of 32. And if you're 28 and you just started, it just really depends on how relevant your upbringing was to the martial arts, your fitness training was, your athletic ability, your upbringing from your parents and what you learned in school, your outlook in life. It's all, it's all dependent on that and whether or not you'll be able to progress quicker than the average person. You know, because if your parents raised you with the teachings of Buddha or Eastern philosophy, then you already have a strong component of the martial arts. If your parents already taught you how to meditate early on in life, then you already have a big chunk of the martial arts under your belt. You might just be lacking the combative training, you know, or how much fitness training have you been doing since the time you were born? How many push-ups and sit-ups and squats, and how many times did you run, bike ride and run around and play sports? And how athletic are you? How flexible are you? How fast are you? How strong are you? That all are very important components towards a martial artist development. And if you spend a lot of that time early on working on that stuff, and that's a part of your lifestyle already, then you should progress and advance very quickly, because you have that component already a part of you. And then all you really need is the combative. Which is not that difficult to develop. So it really depends on how much prior training you had that's related to the martial arts that will dictate how quickly you'd advance once you step into the realm of the martial arts. but I will, I could assume that most people will not get to Bruce Lee's level in not even 30 years. Because he was ahead of his time when he was alive, and there's still people that are having problem keeping up with what he was able to, the standard that he was able to set. So most people will not even get to that level after 40 years or 50 years, or not even within their own lifetime. So if that is your if Bruce Lee is your assessment of what is considered good, then it will not happen in just 8 years. It's going to take much longer than just that. But if your assessment of good is better than the general public, then yeah, you could essentially get pretty good compared to the general public in a matter of weeks or months or a few years. So it all really depends on who you're comparing yourself to. Now, when it comes to teaching, you say run your own school, have your own students, do it full time. In my opinion, I don't think anybody, not even Bruce Lee himself, would be able to be a martial artist full time as an occupation. Even for me, I'm not a martial artist full time as an occupation. I don't consider myself to be, because in order to be considered full time martial arts occupation, you'd have to have enough students to support the school that are here for the martial arts. And from what I see, not just now, but even back then, and even in the future, there are not enough people out there that value the martial arts that will enable anybody to become a full-time martial arts teacher. You'll find thousands and millions of people that would that would like to be entertained by the martial arts. But you will not find hundreds, thousands, or millions of people that are ready to train in the martial arts in its entirety. Now, if you wanted to be a full-time boxing coach, then I could see that happening, because there's a lot of people out there that want to learn how to box or fight. But to be a full-time martial arts teacher, it's not something that is easily done. It could take decades or a whole lifetime to get to the point where you could financially support yourself while being a full-time martial arts teacher. So you have to basically find other ways of making money to support your passion. So even though I run a martial arts school, the amount of students that are in here that are here for the martial arts is not that many. Most of the people that I do train, over half the people that I train are in here for the fitness. And the self-defense. Not that many people for the martial arts. So even Bruce Lee tried to do it, but even he closed down his schools and went into acting, because to make a living off of the martial arts and teaching, you can't make a living off of just one student or two students or even 3 or 4. You need a lot more students than that. And you see a lot of these so-called martial arts schools that, they have a lot of kids classes and they sell a lot of belts, and that is not really martial arts to me. That's more of just, it's almost like operating a daycare center under the disguise of a martial arts school. That's my opinion. So they're not really representing the martial arts. Or you got a so-called martial arts school, whatever style it is, taekwondo, karate, or jiu-jitsu, or Muay Thai, or whatever. You might call it a martial arts school, but if they're prepping up all the students to become fighters, to enter into tournaments, to win trophies, and to win prizes and just the competitive nature of combat sport, then that's not truly martial arts. They might be making a killing off of that. They might be making a lot of money training people to go to the Olympics. But that's not martial arts in my eyes. That's something else. So that's not martial arts. The daycare center with the whole belt systems and kids coming in and out with blue belts, yellow belts, pink belts, brown belts, black belts, that's not martial arts. When you go into the gym, the commercial gym, you see people exercising just to lose weight or try to get stronger, and there's Pilates and Zumba and cardio kickboxing. That's not martial arts. That's just all physical. And then the combat sports all combative. That's not martial arts, neither of them. You go into the church, and then they're singing and praying and whatever they're doing in the church. That's not martial arts either. These are all just components of the martial arts, but none of them has been bridged and brought together to be represented as a whole. And to find the people that are truly here for the martial arts, it is not an easy task to do. And it's not even about you being really good at teaching. It's about also finding the people that are ready and for the martial arts. And that is such a difficult task that you cannot just expect to make a living off of it. And also to be qualified to be a martial arts teacher, that's a whole nother thing. As I stated, it goes deep, because it's like not only do you have to be physically developed to a very high level, but you got to be combatively developed to a very high level, and then spiritually developed. I mean, there's just a lot of things to develop. So back to your assessment of saying, is it like the PhD going 8 years? Well, in 8 years, will I be good enough? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of you'll be a lot better than a lot of the average people out there, and 99% of the people out there are not. They're always going to be at the basics of the martial arts, and you will always be in a position, if you have 8 years of training, you will always be in a position where you can help the person learn the basics of the martial arts. Because 99% of the people out there that's all they can handle are the basics. So, yes, you could very well teach after 8 years of training. But no, in a sense of there's just so much to develop in the martial arts that you can never truly master it. So you will always be developing yourself in those areas for your entire life. And it goes back to the whole Bruce Lee example. It's like, you might never get to that level. You might not even get close to that level. But you can always try. And it certainly is not just going to take 8 years of training to get to that level. It's going to take much longer than that. And like, think of the people that are known to be the greatest at what they do. None of them just did it in just 8 years of training. Like Bruce Lee in his field, Michael Jordan in his field, Tiger Woods in his field, Muhammad Ali in his field of boxing, Floyd Mayweather Jr. in his realm of boxing. Like, even if you look at some of the greatest chess players to ever live, none of it just happens in just 8 years. 8 years is a long time, but it's still not enough. So if you think about it, it'd be like, what would be required? Maybe 8 years of body development, fitness training for that, and then another 8 years for combative training, and then another 8 years of meditation training, for a total of 24 years, which is a lot of years, but still, you wouldn't be considered a master. You still even need more time. But that would be a good. That would be a lot of under your belt to have 24 years of experience in all three of those, 8 years each. So it's like having three different PhDs. PhD for fitness, PhD for combat, PhD for meditation. Then that would be more of a holistic. Now, another thing that comes up is, what's the point of getting all this training when the person that's walking through the door that's trying to be your student is not even close to being ready and prepared for the advanced training in the martial arts? Or they might be ready for it, but then they're not even willing to pay for it. So then what's the point of having these students that don't want to pay? Because they just feel that, oh, I just do it on my own. I don't need your help. So that's another thing. It's like you do all this training. Like, what's the point of waiting 24 years or over 20 years of study to step into a field where students, customers, are not even ready for what you have to teach, and they're not even close to being ready? So a lot of the industry is revolved around catering for the beginners for pretty much a majority of your life, if not your entire life. It's almost it's going to be extremely rare to even have more than a handful of people that are ready for the advanced training of the martial arts. So you almost have to get in a state where you have to learn to be content being stuck training beginners for almost the rest of your life. And if you're just training beginners for most of your life, then your focus in training yourself, is it really even necessary to wait until you're a master in the martial arts to teach the martial arts when all the students are just beginners anyway? It's like compared to, you got, like, for example, not too long ago, like Floyd Mayweather fought against like Pacquiao, and it was like one of the biggest boxing events in history, generating like millions and millions of dollars. Now, all these people are willing to watch Floyd Mayweather box and Pacquiao box, but how many of those millions of people are gonna be even willing to train to box the way that Floyd Mayweather would train? Very, very small percentage. I'd say even less than 0.1% of those people. So when you get to a high level in the martial arts, you can't really make much money teaching people the advanced techniques of the martial arts. You can make some money teaching beginners, but still, even teaching beginners, you're not going to make that much money. So back to the question, it doesn't matter how good you are in the martial arts. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it full time. It just doesn't mean you're going to be able to teach it full time, because how can you teach something full time if there's no students? How can you teach something full time if you only find one student a year for the martial arts? If that. You're going to have to occupy the rest of your time with finding some other method of making money other than the martial arts. For me, I teach fitness. I teach self-defense as a supplement to my martial arts training and my business. For Bruce Lee, he went into acting. He just gave up on teaching the martial arts because he was just too advanced that people just didn't understand what he had to offer. So he just had to let go of it and just continue on his path, his way, while finding another way to make money. So you have a lot of people out there, a lot of people that have an occupation and then they teach martial arts on the side. You have a lot of, well, you have not a lot, but you have some people out there that are police officers and then they'll teach martial arts on the side. Because they could get away with having one student a year. Because their main occupation is a police officer. That's where they make their money. They don't need to have hundreds of students. You can't even find hundreds of students. I don't even care who you are. You will not find hundreds of martial arts students. Because in order for there to be, hundreds of students, the public has to be ready for that type of training, and they're just not. It's like saying Bruce Lee could do a 2-finger push-up. Well, how many people out there can actually do a 2-finger push-up? Not that many. You might find some people on YouTube that could do it, but that's nothing compared to the general population and all the people that are not on YouTube and all the people that can't do it. I mean, you can find people that work out every single day for the last 20, 30 years that they still can't do it. So you gotta find another industry to make the money and then teach martial arts on the side. That's the only way that I can see it work. And then if your martial arts school starts to grow through time, maybe after 20 years, 30 years, then you might get to the point where you actually have a martial arts school where you're teaching it full time and that's all you do. But that's, like I said, that's rare. So you got, one of my former teachers, he's an accountant and he teaches martial arts on the side. So he's an accountant. That's what he does to make money. And he teaches martial arts on the side. So other people, police officer, teaching martial arts on the side. My good friend, he's a martial artist. He doesn't teach, but he's a pilot. That's what he does to make money. And he trains in martial arts on the side. He doesn't teach, but he trains on his own. Another person, a good friend of mine, he's a martial artist. He's a firefighter, so he makes money being a firefighter, and then he trains in martial arts on the side. Out of all the people that I know, I don't know anybody who teaches martial arts full-time. I don't even teach martial arts full-time because I can't find enough students to support the school. I had to find other creative methods to make money to keep the school alive and running. And even Bruce Lee himself wasn't able to do it when he was living. Now, the UFC, for example, just sold for $4.2 billion. So there's obviously interest towards people wanting to watch other people fight. But just because people enjoy watching people fight doesn't mean that they will get involved in the martial arts. There's going to be millions of people that will watch people fight and pay money to watch people fight. And then out of those millions, there's going to be a few thousand people that will pay money to learn how to fight. And then there will be a few hundreds of people that will be willing to pay money to learn the martial arts. You see, you could always gather up a bunch of people to watch a football game and pay money to watch a football game, watch a basketball game, to watch a boxing game. But to actually get people off their butts to actually do something themselves, no matter if you're playing football, basketball, tennis, practicing martial arts, dancing, or doing boxing or whatever, to get the people to get off their butts to actually do something. And not only do something but to actually be good at doing it. That's a whole nother thing, and that is, you're not going to generate nearly as much income in that. So when you're assessing a person that's come through the door, it's not just about them being physically ready or them being combatively ready, but they got to be mentally and spiritually ready at the same time, you know. But those are my thoughts so far.